Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Viva Energy's Gas Terminal Securing Our Energy Future update. I'm Jo Powell, and I'm Viva Energy's Energy Hub Engagement Manager. Thank you so much for giving up your valuable lunchtime today. Our plan and preference was to actually be in person, but unfortunately, yet again, we are online. So thank you for your flexibility and joining us here online today. Before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we're all gathered today. For most of us, that is the lands of the Wadawurrung people. I pay my respects to them past, present, and emerging. The Geelong refinery has been operating in the local community for nearly 70 years. And over that time, we have been really proud to be part of the community. We're also looking forward to being part of the community for many more years to come. That is through securing jobs. We have a workforce of 700 at the refinery at the moment and looking to grow that through the Energy Hub. We also inject money through wages and local services, around $2 million every year into the local economy. And most of all, we facilitate movement, and that being through cars, trucks, planes, and boats, and even more so in not COVID times. For the gas terminal, we will play a vital role in providing hot water, electricity, and heating to households in Victoria, but also allowing businesses to continue to manufacture and grow. But an important part of being part of the community is to listen. And we've heard from you that you're concerned around safety. So today, the team and I would like to spend the next hour addressing your concerns on this very important issue. Safety is paramount to us, and that will be the focus of our gas terminal, but also the discussion today. To have this discussion, I will call upon my colleagues, Dale Cooper, the refinery manager at Geelong, Rob Mackey, the project manager for the gas terminal, and Laura Bishop, who's leading the regulatory approvals. Dale will provide an overview of the refinery and talk about how we as a business are transitioning into the future. Rob will highlight what we are doing in terms of safety to ensure that safety is being addressed. Then Laura will extend this conversation to be more around environmental safety. And then collectively as a group, we will have a discussion and hear from you, the community, about your questions on the gas terminal. To do this, we'll ask that you actually put the questions in the Q&A button in the lower part of your menu tab, and we'll then facilitate the Q&As that way. So it should be a really informative session this morning, or this afternoon actually, and we really look forward to your input as well. So let's begin. Dale.
All right, thank you very much, Jo. And listen, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It's really important that we have this time together today to hear from you, our neighbors, about what's on your mind. And as Jo has mentioned, we have heard from many of you over the past few months with questions like, can I be confident that my family and I can live safely beside the refinery in this facility? Will the new projects like the gas terminal mean that the refinery is less safe, or should I be concerned? Listen, I am sorry that our business is causing you to worry, and I hope that we can address some of those concerns today. My job as the manager at the refinery is to make sure that our facility is safe, that we do not risk the safety of our workers, the community, or the environment, and that includes every one of you. That's what I think about every day. That's my central responsibility. I am very confident that we can and will continue to operate the refinery safely once this new terminal project is up and running. So how can I be so sure? Well, I have been in the refining business now for over 35 years. and I've worked at numerous refineries in North America and the Middle East. And I've been very impressed with the high level of skills, commitment, and prudence that I've seen since joining Viva Energy here last year. You know, for almost 70 years now, this facility has been recognized as a safe, reliable producer of critical products right here in Geelong. We also provide critical support to many of our local businesses, community groups, and sports clubs right around us. And we want to be able to continue to do so for many more years to come. Sam, I'll get you to slide to the next slide, please. A lot of the questions have certainly been raised around the backdrop of climate change. And we do recognize the world is moving to a lower carbon future. Viva Energy is committed to being a part of that transition. During this transition, it is important to remember that traditional transportation fuels like petrol, jet fuel, and diesel, and natural gas are still needed to ensure Victoria has access to affordable energy, to maintain our quality of life, and to help drive the energy transition. That's why it's called a transition. This is a major change which won't happen overnight. While we continue to play our role in providing energy security for Australia, we are also exploring opportunities to be a part of that transition, including looking at alternative fuels like solar, hydrogen, and renewables. Next slide, please. Now, our Geelong refinery is one of the last two refineries remaining in Australia, and we play a fundamental role in providing energy security for Victorians, Australians, and for the future. And we're very excited about our vision for the refinery to become an energy hub. The gas terminal project is a key part of this plan, with natural gas providing a lower carbon alternative to support the transition to zero carbon over time. The energy hub is also looking at hydrogen and solar, as I mentioned, and we will have more to say about those projects when we get together next in November. So why is this all important? Viva Energy, we do play a big role in Geelong's local economy. It's not only about good jobs for Geelong, but the energy hub is central to Viva Energy securing its role here in Geelong, and for us to play a significant role in Geelong's transition to a low carbon renewables future. Next slide, please. Safety is central to absolutely everything we do. Our future here, our future plans are all very important. However, we do need to provide assurances to you, our neighbors, that will continue to be safe for you and your families here in Geelong. Now, I do want you to know and appreciate that our industry is highly regulated, and we are fully committed to meeting all of those obligations every day. We are experts at handling hazardous goods and have been doing so for nearly 70 years. Our refinery is regulated by WorkSafe. We have a safety case and a license to operate. And a new safety case will have to be developed and submitted for this gas terminal as well. We will continue to run a safe, reliable refinery and bring that same commitment to all of our Energy Hub projects, and in fact, everything that we do here on site. We are fully transparent with our regulators, and we are continuously improving on our performance. We employ more than 700 highly skilled workers at the refinery, and most of us live here in Geelong and the Surf Coast. Those skilled workers and their salaries contribute to Geelong being a talented and prosperous community and a great place to live. And we need to continue to do so in a safe, responsible manner, and that is our commitment. And with that, I would now like to thank you for spending time with us today. I'm really looking forward to your questions this afternoon, and I'd like to now hand it over to my colleague, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. And thanks everyone for giving up your time today to hear more about our refinery and the gas terminal project. And I'll be talking mainly around the gas terminal project, and in particular around what LNG is and some of the key safety aspects of the project. You know, as Dale mentioned, we're aware that the community have lots of questions, not only around the refinery, but also about this project and LNG. And that's understandable. It is a change for our refinery, which has been in operation in Corio for the best part of 70 years. So we welcome those questions, and we'll get a chance to address some of them towards the end of this webinar today. But my key focus today will be about why this project is safe. And having spent a bit over 20 years now in the hydrocarbon industry, working on projects not too dissimilar to this, and working on major hazard facilities, I and the project team for that matter understand the rigor and detail that goes into developing a project like this. And then we're also aware of the level of detail required to get the approvals and licenses required to operate these facilities from the regulators here in Victoria, which Dale touched upon, WorkSafe, but there's also Energy Safe Victoria as well with respect to our pipeline. So today I'm going to talk about three key aspects, and the first one is I'll give a brief overview of the project. And I know some of you who have joined us today know a lot about it, but I'll just take a couple of minutes to familiarise those who haven't perhaps joined us in sessions like this previously. Then we're going to show a short video about LNG, which Shell put together to help explain some of the properties of LNG. And then I'll address some of the key safety aspects of the project, including shipping, and then the facility there, which is the closest vessel to us, and that will be permanently moored at the refinery. Oop, you've gone back a slide. Yeah, and then the second scope is that pier extension. So we've got four berths at the refinery at the moment, and this will add a fifth berth, and that's an extension off the existing refinery pier. And then we've got a pipeline which will link the gas terminal across the new jetty, across the existing jetty, and then it'll traverse all the way across our refinery from south to north. And then there'll be an underground pipeline which will connect into the Victorian transmission system out at Lara. And for those of you familiar with the Geelong area, as you come into Geelong, you go down a hill at Hovels Creek. If you look up on the left-hand side, you'll see a wire fence, and that's where we're going to tie in, just there. So they're the first three components, and then there will be some facilities on the refinery in the northeast plot within the refinery fence as it is today, and that will include some nitrogen for injection to meet the gas specification that's required in Victoria. There'll also be some odorant injection so that the gas smells like we all know gas will smell like, and then there'll be a metering station as well up there. So those four scopes of work make up our project, and look, happy to take questions at the end, but I do know that quite a few people online are familiar with the scope. So we might move on to the next piece of the presentation, Sam, which is a video that Shell have put together with a couple of young engineers. It's a little bit corny, but I think it shows some of the properties of LNG, which I think is really important that everybody understands. And then when we come back from this video, I'll step through some of the safety aspects of those scopes of work, which I just described. So let's hit play.
LNG is natural gas in a liquid form. It's odorless, colorless, non-toxic, and non-corrosive. LNG is not a new fuel. It has been safely handled for more than 50 years. We have a small amount of LNG here today to show you some of the basic characteristics of this literally cool fuel. LNG is very cold, but it is not corrosive. As Menine pours some LNG directly onto this cookie sheet, which is about room temperature right now, you can see the LNG quickly evaporating as it beads and slides along the pan. This is because the pan is so much warmer than the LNG. It's actually the same effect you get when you rinse a hot skillet with cold tap water in your kitchen.
Let's see what would happen in the unlikely event that LNG spills on the ground. The soil is much warmer than LNG, so it evaporates quickly. It doesn't seep into the soil or leave any residue. You can see the ground is not wet or sticky, although it would freeze any moisture that's in the soil. Because we know LNG is non-toxic, we can dip a graham cracker into LNG. And after it thaws a bit, we can eat the cracker.
Cheers.
Cheers. All the LNG has evaporated off the cracker and it tastes great.
Very good.
Let's see what happens when LNG comes into contact with water. The LNG is so much lighter than water, it floats on the surface. Water is also warmer than LNG, so the LNG immediately warms and evaporates. Now you notice some ice crystals on top. That's just because of the really cold LNG temperatures. There is no residue left over. LNG has been shipped across the ocean for more than 50 years and has a very strong safety record. But in case of a spill on the water, no spill cleanup is required. So we can actually drink this very cold water. LNG vapors will ignite only if the ignition source is more than 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 500 degrees Celsius. That's pretty hot.
Yeah.
The cigarette that Mariah is holding burns at a temperature of around 700 to 800 degrees Fahrenheit or 350 to 450 degrees Celsius, much lower than the temperature needed to ignite the natural gas, which is why she can pass the red-hot cigarette through the LNG vapors without even igniting it. In fact, Mariah can extinguish the cigarette in the LNG because there isn't enough oxygen in the container to keep the cigarette lit.
LNG is stored at minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 160 degrees Celsius to keep it in its liquid form. LNG has been used around the world for more than 50 years and has an impressive safety record. It really is a cool fuel.
Okay, so as I said, a little bit corny, but I think that describes some of the properties of LNG, and hopefully you've found that informative. We certainly won't be dunking biscuits in the LNG within our project. But as Dale outlined earlier, safety is a core value of Viva and how we operate our refinery, and that will certainly be extended to this gas project. We know how to manage hazardous materials, and we do that every day as part of our base business. And before I talk about specific elements of the project, I want to address a couple of queries that I've recently been asked. And the first one is around, will the refinery be as safe with the gas terminal project as it is now? And yes, it absolutely will be. We know how to manage major hazard facilities, and this project is no different to that. And it won't be built or operated if we can't do that safely, and we can't convince the regulators that we can do it safely either. So I think that's a really key thing for people to bear in mind. And then we've also had questions around security and whether this poses additional security risk to the refinery. And as part of the development of this project, we engage with not only our security team, but we're also connecting with the Commonwealth and border security because we already do that as part of our base business with shipping as well. And we've undertaken risk assessments, and that all shows that the security level of the refinery will not change as a part or due to this project. So I just wanted to address those two up front. We know we've heard quite a few queries around safety and security. And if people have got more queries for us at the end of the presentation, we're happy to take them there. So I wanted to talk about this project and the safety aspects of it. So if we start with LNG shipping, and LNG has been shipped around the world for about 60 years, and it's got a really, really safe track record. And in part, that's due to the design of these vessels. So they call them a double hull. So essentially it's got the storage tanks where the LNG is kept within the hull of the ship. So, and between those two layers of thick steel is about 6 to 8 feet of insulation. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of steel and thickness protecting the cargo from any spillage. And then you couple that with modern technology and navigation and under keel clearance and the like for the ships. they are extremely safe, and then they've got all the modern detection on board in terms of if there is a leak or a spill and that type of thing. And then when they come into Corio Bay, that we've been working with Ports Vic around this. They'll be escorted by 4 tugs. There's speed restrictions on them. We've done modeling and simulation work with the pilots in terms of how we can safely navigate through Corio Bay and up to the refinery pier. And we're very confident and comfortable that that can be done in a really safe manner when we bring these ships in, and it'll be somewhere between 15 to 45 ships a year. So that's on the shipping side of it. And then if we talk about the gas terminal itself and how it will operate and the safety that goes into that, and it's underway at the moment with the design of the facility and the specs and standards that you need to follow when you design it. And then when you get into operation, also there's the safety systems. They're what we call HAZOP. So you review in detail, and piece by piece you go through the project to understand where your risks may be, what action you need to take, and that can be around instrumentation and controls. So that you have enough instruments and enough equipment there to ensure that you can safely manage it, and that includes automatic shutdowns and the like. Then you've got trained operators, and you have procedures in place as well, which also contribute to the safety of your facilities. And a lot of that is already in place at the refinery, and we use a lot of that already as a major hazard facility operator. And we'll continue to work with WorkSafe around all of that. So they're engaged in this project. They're engaged as part of running the refinery in the base case, and in the end, they need to give us a license to operate this facility. And if they're not comfortable and accepting of what we've put in place, then we won't be able to operate it. And then we move over to the pipeline, which in some ways is similar to the gas treatment facility, in that we're very familiar with the process of operating and maintaining pipelines. So again, design and the specification that you use for your pipeline, and then how you maintain it, and there's automatic leak detection and the like. And again, we operate hundreds of kilometres of hydrocarbon pipelines around Victoria. So we are familiar with it. We understand what needs to be done. We work with the regulator, Energy Safe Victoria, around our pipelines. And all of that gives us confidence that we can manage and safely implement this project, the gas terminal. So they're the key things that I wanted to talk about just now. I'm going to hand over to Laura Bishop, our regulatory lead, to discuss the work that we're undertaking to ensure environmental impacts of our project are understood and minimised as required. And then I'll be back later to answer any questions. Thank you for your time, and over to you, Laura.
Thanks, Rob. And look, I understand everyone's busy, so I do appreciate having the time today to talk to you. And it's not just about safety to the community, safety to our families, but it's also safety to the environment as well. So, throughout the course of this proposal, we've had numerous consultation sessions, and they've been through things like these webinars, consultation sessions where we actually could get face-to-face, shopping centre stalls, emails, separate meetings. And throughout those, we do hear that you are deeply concerned about the environment. And also through that, there's questions such as, what does this mean, this proposal, this work, this project, with respect to understanding, safety for the environment as well. So what we have done is we've engaged multiple technical experts. And these are people such as, marine ecologists, environmental scientists, terrestrial ecologists, to really help inform the work. We've also completed numerous studies, models and samples. So things like hydrodynamic modelling, turbidity modelling, air quality modelling, to help give an understanding of what potential impacts may be. And also all these results, technical reports, are reviewed by a technical reference group which has been developed by the Department of Environment, Land, Water Planning, so DAP. And really these studies, and multiple engagements, give us the confidence both in safety and also the commitment to the environment. So today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through a bit more detail around the assessment process that's underway, go through the key studies and also the timeline around these. So to get started on that, what I'd like to do is to give a bit more information on, I guess, what this, and you'll hear the EES, the Environment Effect Statement process is, which we're currently in. So this is a process that is led by DELP. And really it is a rigorous, independent, transparent process that's designed to identify any potential impact and then review and propose, I guess, the measures that you've got in place to either avoid, mitigate or manage effectively. So this is completed through establishing the existing conditions. Once you understand what's there, you go and identify any potential for impact on the environment as part of this proposal. From that, then you go and assess it, and you complete these studies and you assess these potential for impacts. The next step is then to develop either, number one is, can you avoid it? Or otherwise you look at ways to either mitigate or effectively manage any potential impact. And at the end of that, then you look at, you assess any potential for residual impact there. But this isn't a linear process. It's a real iterative process. So we work really, really closely with design teams to then see, okay, can you design it out? Can you design to avoid impacts or make changes to help minimize or mitigate any potential impact? And it's also working through with consultation as well. So taking feedback from stakeholders and seeing, okay, how do we, and do we need to adapt or modify the studies as well based on that feedback and input as well. And this is to really ensure that what we are completing and the work that is being done is safe and it does reflect in terms of minimising any potential impact to the environment. So if you bring up the next slide, please, what this really highlights is the raft of different studies that are underway. So we had the primary studies on the first slide, which are the areas of significant focus. We've also got additional studies, and there's 17 technical studies in total, where we have engaged multiple technical experts. So these experts complete detailed technical studies, and there's a range of people that we have engaged. So such as there's environmental scientists, marine ecologists, there's acoustic engineers, landscape architects, who all help to inform the different studies that are underway. There's been extensive sampling and modelling and monitoring going on as well. So for the last 12 months, we've been gathering data, and there was a lot of existing data prior to that through the existing refinery operations as well. So things such as water temperature and currents, larvae and plankton in the bay. They've also completed benthic studies, noise, air quality, and taken onshore and offshore samples as well to understand what the existing conditions of the soil is as well. Once all this work is complete, any subsequent approvals for this project from the different departments that are required, such as EPA, DELP, ESB, they will not proceed until the Minister of Planning deems that this proposal has acceptable environmental values. So this is part of the EES process, working through, and it really needs to demonstrate that there is no significance for, there's no potential for any significant impact as a result of this proposal. So if we go to the next slide, what I'd like to go through next is really the timeline. And you may have seen this before, but if you haven't, really where we're at is we're coming to the end of finalising and understanding the studies. So as I said before, this is an iterative approach. So you do the studies and we get feedback, feed it into design and kind of go through the process again. So once all the studies are finalised and the environment effect statement is written, it's provided to DELP, who then review it for adequacy. Once that's complete, it's on public exhibition, where the public also have an opportunity to make submissions to DELP as well on this proposal. Throughout this whole period, though, we want your feedback and we value your feedback. And it's very important for us to then reflect that back through the study program too. Once the public exhibition is complete, there's a panel inquiry, and it's only after that then the minister will make his assessment on this proposal and whether it is acceptable environmental values. From that is when you then go for all the other subsequent approvals. So things like the pipeline license from DALP, EPA development license, will require a safety case and is affected as a major hazard facility, cultural heritage management plan, a planning scheme amendment. So there's multiple regulatory approvals that need to be satisfied prior to this project proceeding. So really, in summary, I guess what I'd like to get at today is there is strong regulatory oversight. There's also been multiple technical experts engaged to undertake studies on this. And we are doing everything possible to ensure everything can be and is being done to make sure this proposal is safe, both to people and the environment. So thanks, Rob, and thanks, Dale, for your help before, and I'll hand it back over to Jo now.
Great. Thank you, Laura. And thank you, Dale, Rob, and Laura for giving us such a good insight into the project. But we have also been seeing a number of questions come through, which is really fantastic because we do want to spend the next half an hour really addressing those questions. Just given that we do have half an hour, what we'll do is try and group the questions, but we'll also initially take 3 questions from individuals and have those focusing on safety. But if we do have time, we will broaden it to a larger number of topics and questions from people. So I do actually so what we will also do is publish these questions now. A very fair question has actually already come in asking why the questions aren't being shown. And this is only the second time we've actually done this webinar. So it is all new to us, but we do want to make sure it is transparent. It is the first time I've actually heard that feedback. So what we're going to do is, as I've indicated, make those questions available to everyone. And so you will see the number of questions that are coming in, and there's a whole range of topics, which is really great. Might start with a very important question and a question and topic that we talked about at the beginning, and that's around sustainability. As a society, we're in a really interesting time now that we're addressing climate change, and we're needing to see how we transform to a new future. So Dale, I might start the questions with you. There's been a question from Stephanie saying, can you provide more detail about your plans for sustainable and renewable energy? And then linked to that question, there's also a question that's come in from Neil talking about, does Viva support Victoria's carbon emission reduction targets for 2025 and 2030? So Dale, we might start there.
All right, so thanks so much for your question, Stephanie. So in terms of our plans looking forward, so certainly I just will want to reiterate is that we believe in climate change, and we are committed to moving to a lower carbon future and ultimately a zero carbon future. Incredibly important for all of our well-beings. In terms of our plans, I would say that they would break into 2 categories. First one is sort of fuel security. So just think of that as kind of like making sure that we are able to meet the needs of society while we transition to a lower carbon future. Now, where we think that we can build around the core capabilities that we have here at the refinery is this energy hub concept. And most of what the discussion today is about the gas terminal, so I won't spend more time talking about that. But other projects that we are very interested in include solar. So we already do purchase wind power from a wind power generator, meets part of our requirements. And with the rapid development of solar, we see an opportunity for us to also further complement our power requirements here at the refinery with a solar farm adjacent to the refinery. So that would be one that I would say is proven technology, and we see a role for it to play in our future. The next one, which I would say is less technically developed and is sort of in that emerging market area, is hydrogen as a fuel. And as we know, when hydrogen is either consumed in the technologies that are available today, the byproduct is water vapor versus carbon dioxide. So we do have a project that we are developing now in partnership with some other heavy vehicle fleet operators and technology providers to be able to have our first hydrogen fueling station here adjacent to the refinery as well. The source of that hydrogen is going to be what will really be the transition to in the future, and you'll hear the concept of green hydrogen and how solar, wind plays a role through the electrolysis to produce the hydrogen required for those new types of vehicles. The other area is around renewables. So as you think about where is hydrocarbon used today? Yes, it is used for transportation fuels, but it's also used for the plastics industry. And a lot of the plastics today are only starting to get more and more recycled. And there are technologies that we are looking at to actually convert plastic into a feedstock for the refinery, and such that we can co-process it with our fossil-based fuels. Those technologies, similar to hydrogen, are moving along, I would say almost in leaps and bounds now, as more and more interest takes place in that. And it is that interest, that market desire, that regulatory framework that drives the innovation, the investment in these technologies. And we're certainly getting plugged into that. The other question around the state's carbon reduction targets. So, certainly we do believe that we need to, we absolutely believe we need to transition to a low carbon environment. And we are very much watching the states that we operate in and the federal government. And as we know, with the COP26 conference coming up here, we believe that we'll get some clear directions from our federal government as well in terms of the journey that the nation is going to be on. So at a high level, yes, definitely want to need to do our part because refining is an energy intensive business. You think about it, you take cold crude oil, heat it up, convert it into more useful products. It is an energy intensive process. So we are constantly looking for ways to be more energy efficient. That'll be a way for us to definitely play our part. And as well, our customers are becoming increasingly interested on what they can do to lower their carbon footprint. And us being an energy company and that knowledge, we think that we can help them on their journey as well.
Great. Thank you, Dale. It really is showing that as a business, we do need to look at doing things differently. And just coming on the theme of sustainability, another question has come in around what we're doing as a business to be carbon neutral. And that is obviously a big part of our transition, and also something that we'll be focusing on in terms of our next community meeting. We'll really be exploring what the project and also what the business is doing in terms of sustainability, because it is a really important component. Let's go back to sort of the gas terminal now. And Laura, you talked a lot about what we're doing in terms of involving regulators and also involving expertise. A question has come through from Sanjay, and she is asking, what specific experts will we bring to ensure that our project is safe with the LNG facility here? And will we be using expertise from the local Geelong region?
Thanks, Jo. And I guess it's a really good question to kind of have brought up, and it's something that we have dedicated a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of resource to really explore and to understand this. So basically, when we're looking at technical experts, yes, we have an ongoing engagement with City of Greater Geelong on this proposal. However, we're also bringing in, I guess, a raft of expertise. So in terms of from the FSAU, engaging FSAU specialists and experts to help inform us. There's ongoing conversations with WorkSafe. There's also, I guess, as part of the EES, there's the safety studies and technical reports that are being fed into that, which kind of has a raft of groups that are feeding in from design, operation, the safety studies that are complete too. Throughout this as well, we're looking at engagement with Energy Safe Victoria. So a gas safety case will also be required for the pipeline, and kind of working through from the the shipping side of it and marine side of it as well with Ports Victoria. Understanding as Rob went through in terms of the LNG carriers and the requirements through port as well. So in terms of I guess then sum that up and answer the question. We've engaged with multiple technical experts and specialists to help inform holistically the view of safety of the studies, and that will it's still the beginning. We're still working through design, optimizing WorkSafe, which feed into the safety case. And as Rob said earlier, this will not proceed unless we can demonstrate it's safe and get the relevant approvals to do so.
I might just add a little bit there as well, Laura and Joe. Laura talked about that environmental side of it, and on the technical development of the nuts and bolts of the project also, in terms of expertise around gas terminals, then we're really leveraging our engineering contractor Worley, who have got expertise. Viva obviously being a relatively small company, and here in Australia, gas terminals are new to us, so we are leveraging other people who bring expertise to the project, mainly out of the Worley organisation.
Great, thanks, Rob. There's a lot of people working on this project with a lot of expertise. So we are hearing as we actually go out to the community, particularly from residents, and we can so understand it. Residents are wanting to know why our facility is, where it is and its proximity to residents. So Rob, I might pose this question to you because it's really important for our residents and for us, because we've got a workforce of 700 people on site. Why haven't similar facilities been built? Sorry, let me start that question again. If the gas terminal is safe, why haven't similar facilities been less than 5 kilometres from domestic housing properties? And I think that this sort of refers to other ports that we're hearing a lot of in terms of places like Darwin and Gladstone. So Rob, it would really be great to get your thoughts on that very important question.
Yeah, sure, Joe, and it is one that we've heard from a number of people, and I understand that around the Geelong area. I think there's a couple of things, similar types of facilities. If we talk about gas import, gas terminals, then there are places globally where they are closer than what we are even to residential areas. Certainly in Australia, this is proposed. We don't have any existing gas import terminals within Australia, so it is relatively new. We've got a lot of LNG production around Australia, in various parts of Queensland and Darwin and off the northwest shelf as well. So they are slightly different, and they're more complex in terms of their processing. However, this project is really well suited to the Geelong area. It is an industrialised area at the refinery. There's a couple of key synergies that the project has with the refinery in terms of the recycling of the cooling water, which we can take from the gas terminal and use it at the refinery, and then any excess boil off gas which you get, again, we use that in the refinery. And there are a couple of key advantages our project has over any similar types of projects. And then if there's concern around safety, as I mentioned earlier, we're doing a heck of a lot of work to ensure the safety of the project, whether it's through the shipping of LNG into Corio Bay, how we manage the gas terminal itself and the facilities adjacent to the refinery and on the refinery site, and then how we manage the pipeline as well. And all of those things give us confidence that the project is safe as we foresee it happening in the at the Corio refinery site.
Great, thanks, Rob. And while we're sort of focusing the discussion on safety in the refinery, it's also really important to recognise the shipping part of safety, which you talked about in your presentation. But a question has come through, and once again, this is something that we are hearing that we really, it's important that we address, is, you know, ships come from all around the world. What will Viva be doing to ensure that the ships are registered, that they're safe, because a number of ships can come from all different types of countries? And so this person here would really like to understand more about what we're doing and how we're working with the regulators on this.
Yeah, sure, Joe. And I think we've heard before around flag nations of shipping, and I'm learning a bit about shipping through this project. Irrespective of the flag nation of the ship, the safety standards for LNG tankers that are traded globally are the same irrespective of their flag nation. And then the Australian Maritime and Safety Authority oversee any ships that that come into Australian waters, and the Classification Society, which is a global organisation, they actually undertake all the inspections, and they're the ones who issue the certificates, usually via organisations such as Lloyd's or DNV. So the flag nation isn't, you can't align the flag nation with the safety. It's all managed through global entities. And then Viva ourselves, we have our own assurances that we run with all our shipping, and we currently ship, I think it's in the region of 200 ships per year of crude oil, to ensure that they're crewed appropriately as well and meet minimum paying conditions and the like as well, on top of what the global organisations do as well. So all of that just builds the confidence that we have in terms of being able to safely ship LNG into Corio Bay and then be a part of this project.
Thanks, Rob. Laura, in your presentation, you really outlined the number of studies that we're doing, and a really important study is the greenhouse emissions. It will be something that we're actually devoting our next meeting on as well in November. But I think it is important to discuss it, and a question has come through, and that's around what are Viva's scopes 1, 2 and 3 carbon emission projections for the next 5 and 10 years? And that's a very big question, but you might be able to provide a little bit more detail specifically around this project. And again, it will be something we'll be addressing and talking more broadly about sort of Viva's role in our November meeting.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. And as you kind of said, it is something that we currently are giving a lot of attention to, and also something that does feel like it is forefront on people's minds. So, I can speak from the project perspective in terms of we've engaged experts to review in terms of from the operational side of things, the proposal, and undertake studies in terms of from the greenhouse gas emissions. And so with that, in line with the scoping requirements, looking at it, in terms of scope 1, scope 2, and the relevant scope 3 associated with this proposal. So we're just in the fine-tuning stages at this moment. And as Joe said, we'll be looking to present these at the next safety session, because key for us is really about focusing on what we can also do to minimise potential emissions associated with operation as well. So we're looking at things like using the open loop as a preferred mode of operation. So open loop actually has 4 times less emissions associated with that mode of operation. Other FSRUs and gas terminal projects, there's an element of boil-off gas. So the really cold LNG, as some of it warms up, you get vapors. We're actually looking at reusing some of the boil-off gas. So other instances, this may go to the environment, but this is another one of those synergies of being co-located next to the refinery. So we'd actually look to use some of that gas within the refinery itself. So we're just in the process of, other things, material selection and that type of thing. So a lot of work has actually gone into this proposal in terms of not just reporting what these proposed numbers or forecast numbers are, but also upfront looking at, okay, from design, what can we do to actually try and minimise and mitigate these as well? So we look forward to being able to share that at our next session once we kind of finalise and through this iterative approach, finalise the assessment there. Thanks, Jo.
Laura. And is it, as indicated, not only will we be talking about the project at the next session in terms of sustainability, but also we'll give more detail around Viva Energy's approach to sustainability, because as Dale indicated at the beginning, this is about us as a business transitioning as the whole world transitions to lower carbon emissions. So we might change pace a little, and this is sort of a question for you, Rob. There's sort of two questions have come in, so I might combine them. And there's one from Paris around why are we actually investing in non-renewable energies at the moment. So I think that's a really important question to ask as to why are we developing a gas terminal now. And then I'd link into another question that's been posed by Garth, and it's more, I'm not sure if we can answer that because we're not really experts in the cost of gas right now for retailers, but there's a question that has come in saying if LNG was being imported today, would the consumer be seeing higher or lower prices for the domestic gas? And then Garth goes on to talk about the cost of international trade and bills. So it might be an interesting topic to look at why we need it and potentially sort of the cost.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jo. So I might answer Paris's question first up, and it is a very good one, and I think Dale touched upon it earlier. In terms of the transition within the energy market to a low carbon future and what that looks like, and the market and the regulators of gas and energy in Australia are forecasting that there's going to be a gap in the supply of gas in Southeast Australia versus the demand. And currently Victoria and maybe a little bit broader Southeast Australia uses about twice as much gas as anywhere else, and it's really around our heating, our hot water and our cooking, particularly here in Victoria. And that's because we've had plentiful gas supplies for 50 years coming out of Bass Strait. So we've kind of built our lives around it, and there's more than 2 million houses have gas connections, and there's tens of thousands, I think it's north of 60,000 businesses as well. So there's a large gas demand here in Victoria. And as the supply is dropping off in some of those historical supply locations, and that means that there's going to be a gap. So call it 2024, 2025, 2026, where there won't be enough gas for homes or businesses in Victoria. That's what's being forecast. So that's fundamentally the economic driver why we see this project being able to fill that gap as society transitions away from fossil fuels. And that might be a 2040, 2050 type of roadmap. I'm sure we'll get there, but we believe that gas will be required, and that's what AEMO and others are also forecasting. It. Gas is going to be required in Southeast Australia for quite a while to come. And we see the refinery as being a great location, as we talked about earlier, some of those synergies, the fact that we're familiar with major hazard facility and the like. So I hope that's answered Paris's question. If we move over to gas, it's certainly an interesting space at the moment globally around energy. So who knows what it would be here today. But what we believe is that if there is that gap in the market, that Victorians are best off having gas supplied as close as possible. So if there is to be an LNG import terminal to bring gas into Southeast Australia to meet that gap, and we think bringing it in by ship and via import terminals is a better option than pipelines. If you can imagine running pipelines from say Gladstone, where there is the LNG export into Victoria, and having to either increase the line size or run hundreds and hundreds of kilometres of pipe, that's a more expensive option than what we're proposing. So bring it in close to where the demand is will lead to cheaper prices, as opposed to bringing it into somewhere that's not as local. For example, if it was coming into New South Wales rather than Victoria, then consumers would pay for that additional mileage that you need to transport the gas across. So bringing it in locally will support the lowest possible prices for Victorian gas users. So again, I hope that's answered that question as well. Thanks, Jo.
Thanks, Rob. And with time, this hour has absolutely raced by, but we might just have one final question, and this is coming earlier today from Sanjay in relation to sort of methane and looking back at the video and talking about what LNG is. Sanjay asks, what about vaporization with humidity and what happens there in terms of that evaporation? But I think that also question links into the various studies and so forth that we're doing, looking at the impacts of LNG in our terminal on the bay, the water, marine, and warming of the climate and so forth. So Laura, I'll throw that question to you.
Thanks, Jo. And I guess this is probably a bit of a follow-on from, I guess, my previous response. Basically, number one for us, the intent is about, minimising the emissions. So, doing what you can to keep the methane in the pipe or in the vessel, as opposed to having it released out into the atmosphere. We are assessing, air quality. So if you're talking from a health perspective, air quality assessments are being completed for this proposal, along with the greenhouse gas calculations as well. To Sonia's question, no, we're not going to eat it. But yeah, look, it is really holistically looking at in terms of understanding from the project proposal perspective, air quality and the risk and understanding, okay, what's the human health acceptance and where does this proposal sit relative to that? So completing the full assessment along there, but then also looking at it in terms of actually what are the emissions associated, what is the greenhouse gas emissions, and really for us the intent is about not at the end of it, but what are we doing now to try and mitigate and minimise any of those potential emissions associated with the proposal.
I might just add a little bit to that as well, Laura. The key thing is that we keep the LNG in the pipeline, whether that's in the gas terminal, whether it's in the facilities on the refinery or in the pipeline itself, and that's where a lot of our work is based upon in this design phase, and it's around the specifications that we use, the materials of construction that we use, how we design it, what are the safety interlocks, what are the shutdowns, what's our response if there is an issue, and all of those things. And hopefully I was able to outline that earlier, all the way through the shipping, the facilities, and then the pipeline, to ensure that this project is safe in every aspect of it, so that LNG and then the vaporized gas stays where we all want it to stay, to ensure the safety of the project.
Great. Thanks, Rob. I think that's a really good place to sort of end the conversation now that it's 1 o'clock, because safety is absolutely the most important thing for us. And I hope you've really been able to see that today through our discussions and through the answers that you've been, or questions you've been asking us and the answers we've provided. You know, we will be ensuring through all our studies and work that we will be doing everything to ensure that safety is maintained. It will also be double checked, triple checked in terms of our plans by the regulators, but also on an ongoing matter, particularly very similar to how the refinery operates at the moment with WorkSafe and safety cases. So for us, you know, safety is absolutely the most important thing as we develop up this project. And the other area that we've touched on today, but as we've indicated, we will be spending more time in November, is around that sustainability. And a question has come in from Paris at the end as well, just in relation to carbon offsetting. It is something that we're exploring for this project, and it is something that we will be able to speak to in a little bit more detail at that November meeting as well. So the November meeting will be held on the 29th at 5 to 6:30 at the Geelong Library. We are really hoping that we can do it in person, because we'd love to speak to you face to face and really have more in-depth conversations about these important topics. So do keep an eye on our website. There is also our website and Facebook page that provides more information, whether it be fact sheets or study summaries. We're also more than happy to follow up any other questions, speak to other groups or community meetings that you may be organising. So please do get in touch with us via our email or our telephone number. I think the details are up on the screen as we speak as well. But Viva Energy, you know, we're really proud of the work we do in the community. We've talked about the jobs. We have apprentices working for us. We work really strongly with community organisations like Northern Futures and our sporting clubs. And we're really committed to the Geelong community. So this for us is a really important way that we can continue to be a part of that Geelong community. As always, we're really keen to hear feedback about today's session or anything else. There will be a survey at the end of the session today, just to provide a little bit more feedback. As I indicated, this is pretty new to us, the webinars being only our second webinar. So please, would really appreciate you just taking a few minutes to provide us with that feedback. But we're very proud of what we're doing. We're really excited about this project, and we look forward to discussing this with you in more detail, either between now and our next meeting or at the next meeting in November. So thank you.